Welcome to your August Legendary Arc V-Deck inclusion into changing up the meta. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that Odd Eyes deck so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So I want to talk about how I feel about the Legendary Arc V-Decks coming into the new meta, and if they're going to be a real meta shakeup, as a lot of people want to see. Now, we get two new interesting cards for the Odd Eyes deck. We get a FDK enabler, which is funny because the only thing that matters on the card is it's a tuner level 8 synchro, which is crazy. But also, at the exact same time, we get to actually see a concept of a secondary pendulum summon enabler generically across the board for, magicians, Odd Eyes, and other potential extension piles that the engine decks could want to play. Looking at it more generically, I do think the new Odd Eyes Overdrive is a very cool card. I do think that his time is a little bit limited, because why would I want to make that when I could make Medi Curious, as it points down and also feels like a better card. I'm sorry to say that, but that's much further down the line. Secondary Pendulum Summon enablers are cool, but as we've seen with how they've been a little bit more limited, I mean, walk on over to DDD and see how that deck has really shaped up over the years here. It's kind of sad to say, because I do love the idea that Konami can break their own mechanics to try to make decks feel more pile oriented, at least to the point that they feel better. But at the same time, there's an argument to really be said, is it good enough? And if I'm having to rely on Primite cards and other things that are already power crept, I think the answer is, unfortunately, no. Now, Lunalights. Now, this is the one that if we were in a different situation, I would be all for. I loved the concept when they first introduced the level 5 Lunalight monster, that we could potentially run this with all sorts of the cool, canine cards. And then they banned a Noroi. The minute that they took a Noroi out back and removed it from the game, really kind of, it put a bad taste in my mouth. It was like, what was the point in creating this level 5 monster if we were just going to, take the canine package out back and blow it up? Now, there is something to be said here, that maybe you still want to approach Lupus and Izuna as potential aids in being able to, protect your field. I'm not going to lie, your opponent hand traps you. At least you can pivot with an Izuna onto the field to kind of get a little bit more safely set up. But my only concern about that idea is, do you have enough extra deck space to facilitate all of this inclusion stuff? Because you already got to look at rank 4 stuff. Now, the fact we've branched into a potential level 5, do I want to play extra DLC, or am I just going to let this be a level 5 that's going to float on the field? The point here is, of the new themes, I still think Lunalight has the sackiest of the potential, just because the top end on the Lunalight boss monsters is so gosh darn atrocious to deal with. Nobody has fun walking into dealing with a Lunalight board, and depending on how many copies of these are going to get actually involved on the M board, well, that does end up being another big topic of conversation. So something to kind of think about. We also have Speedroids. Your archetype's doomed when Konami has to print a circular for you to try to save your archetype. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say this card is bad. That is not the case. Being able to specifically dump any piece for your combo line that you need to be able to kind of keep things going, whether it be, one of the trap cards, one of the spell cards, one of the monsters you need. This card is multi-dimensional in the way that it is supposed to work, and it also gives you floating access into other potential pieces that you're going to need. It was a card that was designed to do more than it should. Konami likes to overclock some of these cards. Get it? Like the Odd Eyes Overclock Dragon. They like to, well, we can make one card, so we better make it really count, instead of making 2 to 3 new cards. And that's kind of where Speedroid Circular comes in. The problem is the rest of the Speedroid cards are not necessarily good. And the rubber band shooter, or the Link 2, is fantastic. Like, that card is generically good across the board, but it's like, okay, so my M board boss monsters are a bunch of powerful clear wing monster negates. It doesn't stop my opponent from just slapping a giant monster kill onto my field and just going, well, whoops, sorry, I just broke your field apart, I get it, I do, but it's a little bit frustrating to deal with when, that's your deck now. I think all 3 of these people are going to try for the rogue category, but I don't necessarily think they're going to be meta contenders. Now, what about the top end of the meta? So, as many of us have paid great attention to things right now, Ritual of Light and Darkness innovations have become the TCG's baby. Meanwhile, in the OCG, you've kind of watched Rolad kind of start to phase out into the lower parts of the tournament settings, which I think is fine. Having Rolad be the TCG's brainchild, I think has been fine. They've been trying to find... God, I've seen so many, like, you theorize, bridge into different potential, search methods to get the Griffo. We've got people combining the Angelecki, which, by the way, Angelecki didn't necessarily take off in the TCG. It doesn't mean that TCG players are not playing with Angelecki. I want to make that very, very abundantly clear. Having access to E4 is like a 3 of, and then playing 1 problem in the main deck. That's 4 potential cards that you could roll out with and be able to make a functioning, board work. Which, I bring this up because there was a Rolad Angelecki Elf Note deck that just showed up that ended up smashing an event. And I was just like, that is a combination of so many engines. But this also highlights kind of the TCG's problem right now. As, this format develops, there is a lot of topic of conversation about, pile decks in general and the existing bridges into other decks. Traditionally, Konami has smashed a lot of these bridges when they become too problematic. And I think that's something that Konami is kind of eyeballing right now, is the current existing engines that are bridging into other things. One of them being Theorealize, for example, being able to search a 300, 200. It just so happens that that's also the stat line printed on the lower power patron monsters that could potentially cause some problems. Realistically, right now, no matter what's going to happen as the meta shapes up, one thing is for certain to me. Rolad is going to continue to be optimized by the TCG. TCG players love the idea of having a simplified engine that they can just run through that doesn't necessarily hurt them. And it's a draw phase effect. Griffo set during draw phase, activate, be able to get my search. No, you ain't drawing Lockbird and me. That's the straight mentality that has served the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG community for the time being, and that's a pretty important mentality that this game needs to continue to develop by, because that's exactly the TCG experience in a nutshell right now. And the fact that you're looking at top meta decks and potential for the RP decks, you know what you need to build around. You need to build around the idea that the meta decks are going to either be pile decks or they are going to be Rolad with, once again, other ideas built in. There's a lot to truly think about with that. So, what do you guys kind of think about everything? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.